I spent a good chunk of yesterday working on a video explaining the differences in how smoothing works in Planet Coaster 1 and 2. Basically, what happened was when I got in the game and I plopped down the blueprint for the RMC that comes with the game and I saw how much smoother it was, I was pretty amazed. And I started tinkering a little bit myself, and I noticed that as I was working, I was seeing previous sections of track bending in anticipation for the next upcoming pieces of track that I was working on. And I thought, oh, that's what it is. It's as you're smoothing the coaster in this game, in Planet Coaster 2, the previous track is able to adjust itself accordingly, and that's where the smoothing comes from. So I went ahead and I built the exact same layout in both games by essentially building it for the first time in Planet Coaster 1, and then watching the playback of my build in Planet Coaster 2 and just putting each section down exactly the same length, the same incline, the same twist, and the same turn. And I ended up with the exact same coaster in both games. And then I started explaining how, as you're smoothing in Planet Coaster 2, watch for when previous sections of track or upcoming sections of track will start to bend as you're working and manipulating the coaster. But then I realized that it wasn't doing that. As I was smoothing, none of the other sections of track were moving like I thought they were. So what I realized is that only happens in build mode as you're placing down track. As you can see, this piece right here, it's moving just a little bit as I twist this back and forth. So the extra smoothing was coming from building instead of smoothing like I originally thought. And I was pretty happy with that explanation. I thought it was surprising because like I said, I thought that I was noticing that extra movement happening while I was smoothing, not while I was building, and I was just mistaken. But then once I was going and editing the video, and I finally got to the point at the very end of the video after I edited the whole thing where I put both coasters side by side next to each other and played them back synced up, I realized it wasn't even that much smoother between Planet Coaster 1 and Planet Coaster 2. So now I don't really know what's going on because I know that it's been easier for me to make seemingly smoother coasters in Planet Coaster 2. I can see that at least in build mode, the track is now adjusting itself to make sure that it's smooth with the next piece and not just fixed in place like it was in the first game. But looking back at the footage before I smoothed the track in Planet Coaster 2, it was a lot more similar to how it was in Planet Coaster 1 than I was anticipating. So, yeah, I'm thinking I'm going to need to try to figure out what's going on here more, or I'll just accept the fact that Planet Coaster 2 seems smoother somehow, and that I'm sure this has to do with it, even though looking at the footage side by side, it's not as big of a difference as I thought. So basically, I'm going to scrap like probably like 25 minutes worth of footage from the video I recorded yesterday, just replace it with this little rant I'm going on now, and I'll just leave in a couple of key clips of me building the two layouts. I might throw in a couple extra commentary pieces that I think are still relevant or still accurate, and then I'll just end the video with the side-by-side comparisons. Anyway, there you go. Enjoy. We're going to do the Matless Unchained model, which is your basic iBox RMC in real life. I'm actually going to start by making sure the station is at a consistent height above the ground in both. I'm just going to put a wall piece there and make sure that the wall piece is just barely in the ground. So now we're exactly 4 meters off the ground in the station. And let's begin. So the way this is going to work is that every time I build out a piece of track, I'm going to take note at how long the track length is, its incline or decline value, its rotational value, and its turn value. And then piece by piece, I can make the exact same coaster in Planet Coaster 2 by watching the footage back as I play it. I think this might be the layout. This is actually the second one I did. The first one, I built the whole thing and it didn't make it over the second hill, so I started over. Alright, it's not the best layout in the world. It's not even good, but it's reproducible in Planet Coaster 2. So now I'm just going to go through and hit it with a smooth forward, a smooth backward, and then another smooth forward and another smooth backward through that the whole layout. I'm also going to do 3 segments at a time since that's good practice with this technique. So smooth forward, smooth backward, smooth forward, smooth backward. All the way to the end, and now smooth backward. And really this technique works best with the 4-meter method, which is where you use 4-meter segments for the entire ride. And then if you want to be even more intense, you can go down to 2 meters or even 1 meter. Since I'm not doing that, this smoothing might not be the best, but I also wanted to use different metered segments because that's how I'm going to be building in Planet Coaster 2 because it kind of works better that way. So there's 2 full passes, or actually I got to do back. So that was 1 forward, 1 back, 1 forward, and now 1 back. So let's see how that looks now. The things I'm looking for, I'm watching this front car right here. I'm looking for jitter. That's something that's really problematic in Planet Coaster 1 is the jittering, because that's just a byproduct of how smoothing works in this game. So yeah, this overbank isn't even like overbanked anymore from the smoothing. See how this 0G roll does. Not horrible, but you see what I mean, where it kind of looks like it's shaking back and forth as it goes through. Honestly, it's not too bad. The biggest problem is that smoothing like that, it's completely changed the layout in terms of like that overbank turn that I had is just a turn now, and that's just a byproduct of smoothing. As it tries to smooth it, if it's really twisted, it takes the twisting out, which is why things like the 4-meter method work better, because if you're using smaller segments, the start of the segment that's being smoothed and the end segment that's being smoothed, those 2 front and end edges of the track have to stay fixed. So as you're going through with little passes like that, it's not going to have as much of a chance to completely change the profiling as you're smoothing, and that's why the 4-meter method works so well in Planet Coaster 1. But as you're using smaller segments, that jittering that I'm talking about becomes more apparent because each segment is where that jitter happens between the 2 segments where they join. As it smooths, it doesn't smooth it perfectly. It doesn't have continuous roll. It doesn't have a continuous arch through that smoothing as it smooths it, and that's where you get that jitter. So by using longer segments, it happens less, so that jitter's less obvious, but the drawback is the profiling is completely changed. Let's take a look at this front bumper cam so we can really see the shape of the track as it goes through. I feel like you can really tell when a single segment starts and the next one stops. It's kind of almost like an old Aero coaster where they were just bending segments and with a continuous radius, so you could really tell when the radius changes or when they switch between calculating the radius off the left track or the right track. But that's kind of how Planet Coaster 1 works. I wonder if it's going to be harder to build realistic Aero coasters in Planet Coaster 2 because of that. That might be kind of interesting to see. So we got a good look at what that layout looked like before smoothing and after smoothing, so you can just see how the layout was more intended to look. And then you got to see what it was like after it was smooth, where it's very different and a little smoother, but still, I think Planet Coaster 2 is going to look a lot smoother. Right, so here we are in Planet Coaster 2. Let's hop in. I'll do the same thing. I'll flatten the map. I'll paint it with mostly grass. I'll set up the coaster to be at 4 meters above the ground, and then I'll start recreating the layout. So once again, to do this, I'm going to plop down the same RMC ride model. So we'll go to Coasters, Create Custom, Manufacturer, High Peaks Construction. Here we have the wooden hybrid steel rails. So this is the exact same as it is in Planet Coaster 1. They even kept the train model, pretty much just a fancier, nicer looking version of the same. So Let's go. I've already run into a snag. In Planet Coaster 1, I was able to make this lift till go down to negative 30 degrees off the drop, and I can't in Planet Coaster 2. So what I'll do is I'll make it 5 meters to flat, and then do a station down 30, also 5 meters. That's not the biggest deal breaker, so we'll continue from there. And immediately another snag. Planet Coaster 2, I can't do a 90-degree drop right here. Is that a track limit of the coaster? Huh. I guess in Planet Coaster 2, the max drop angle for an RMC is 85 degrees. Isn't there a way to extend? There has to be. Okay, let's see. Extend track limits. Now can I go? There we go. Now let's see if I can go down 30 degrees with this. Nope, still not. I still can't go down 30 with that, so I'll go back to 5 meters, 0. Alright, I think I've got it from this point. Alright, that should be it. That should be an exact copy of what I did in Planet Coaster 1. So every single section of track is the exact same length, the exact same incline, the exact same roll, and the exact same turn as it was when I built it in Planet Coaster 1. So now we can do a first-person view and compare it to see how much smoother it is. Alright, here we go. Let's see how it compares. Planet Coaster 1. Not bad. Can definitely tell it still needs smoothing, but that's mostly just to even out some of the transitions between segments. But the transitions between segments already aren't as noticeable as Planet Coaster 1. So let's do the same thing we did in the first game. We'll smooth it forward, smooth it back, smooth it forward, smooth it back, and give it a re-ride. Alright, that's one pass forward. Now we can do one pass backward. Now one more forward. And one more backward. Alright, that's it. So we built the layout. We didn't smooth it. We wrote it. We smoothed it using the same method, forward and backwards, as we did in Planet Coaster 1. Now let's hop on, see what it looks like now. It's a little more overbank there still. Ooh, that's interesting. It completely took out that zero-G roll, didn't it? Ooh. Wow. So I gotta say, overall, it's definitely smoother, but it completely undid the zero-G roll. So that is a problem that happens in Planet Coaster 1. If you're not careful with your smoothing, it'll completely undo inversions because it's like, oh, why twist 180 degrees this way when you can just twist like 30 degrees that way? So that's kind of a bummer, but overall, man, yeah, you can tell it's so much smoother. What's also interesting is that this overbank seemed a little more banked in Planet Coaster 2 after smoothing than it did in Planet Coaster 1. So that was extra surprising that it completely undid this roll right here. So yeah, it's a bummer that it undid that roll. I'm gonna probably just delete this to recreate it, and then I'll just pay a little extra attention when smoothing to make sure it doesn't accidentally undo the roll. Alright, so that is built the same way that I built it the first time. Now what I'm going to do, so I'm still going to smooth 3 sections at a time, but when I smooth, I'm just going to make sure I don't go over the inversion. So I can smooth that backwards. Alright, so I smoothed it a little bit more. So let's ride it now and compare. So again, it's just about as close as we can get without losing that roll at this point. From the top. Oh yeah, so much smoother. Now we'll take a look at it from the track view. So, if this video was helpful at all, make sure to hit that thumbs down, make sure to unsubscribe. I've been teetering on the edge of regaining monetization for 7 years, but I also have not posted anything until a couple days ago in 7 years. So make sure to do those so I can never run ads again, and then you'll never have to see an ad on my video. Adios, amigos.